This is Alex Hargreaves,
Hello.
and I'm going to talk to him some about his playing and you grew up in Bluegrass, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bluegrass-ish related things, yeah.
How old were you when you started playing?
I got my first violin when I was 3 and started taking lessons when I was 4.
Did you start with like classical music or did you start with like fiddle music?
Kind of both at the same time. I did the Suzuki method,
Yeah.
which is a method for learning classical music, but it emphasizes ear training. So it often kind of goes hand in hand with learning folk music. And so around the same time, I started learning fiddle tunes and taking lessons from fiddle players. I kind of started off doing a lot of Texas style fiddle playing. Sometimes it's known as contest fiddling because it's what's played in fiddle contests. But
Yeah.
it's really like old time fiddle music that kind of came from Texas. So I started doing that and Suzuki around the same time. Yeah.
How were you like introduced into bluegrass?
I guess it was kind of through my dad, who his day job is he's a professor of linguistics, but he's a bluegrass fan and he plays dobro
Cool.
and some guitar. So I grew up hearing that music a fair amount, and I started to tag along with him, going to festivals and jamming with some of his friends.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what got me into it. Yeah.
That's cool. That's how I started too.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So do you have like any inspirations on the fiddle when you were younger? And like did they change as you got older?
Yes, I mean, so many. Probably my first big fiddle hero was Johnny Gimble. He's no longer alive, but he was a really great Western swing fiddle player.
Yeah.
Have you heard him before?
I have,
Yeah, he's so great. And I think that's one reason why I maybe ended up getting into jazz when I got older too, is because his playing kind of is an interesting combination of kind of country and old-time Texas fiddle playing mixed with, swing and some bebop type influences. So.
Yeah, I was just listening to him a couple days ago actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
That's
he's
awesome.
really good. Do you think that like the influences of your music got like changed as you got older?
Definitely. I mean, it's always changing for sure,
Yeah.
but that's one reason why I love living in New York, is it's definitely exposed me to a lot of different kinds of music that I ordinarily wouldn't have discovered.
Why do you think that so many bluegrass musicians live in New York? Because there's like a jam every night with like really amazing
Yeah.
players. Why do you think that's in New York?
Well, there's definitely quite a history of that music here that's been, at least since the 60s and before, like,
Yeah.
People like Grisman and Bill Keith and Bela. I mean,
Yeah.
there's definitely a lineage of that. It's been going on for a while, but I don't know. I feel like, well, to me, bluegrass is a kind of music that is really just like a mixture of a lot of different things. Like that's how it came to be, right? With Bill Monroe and being inspired by blues and old time and early jazz. So to me, that kind of fits the spirit of the music to be in a setting like New York, where there are other influences. And all the bluegrass musicians I know who live in New York are very inspired by all kinds of music. And even when they play straight ahead bluegrass, it's somehow informed by those different sounds,
Did you go to school for music?
I did, yeah. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Did you study like jazz or like music?
Yeah, that was mostly what I did was jazz, but a few other things too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you seen like the bluegrass scene in New York City evolve?
Yeah, I mean, I've only lived here for 5 years, so but it's always changing and evolving in different ways for sure. I mean, a cool thing that I've kind of seen happen in the last few years is kind of this like collision of worlds, like jazz musicians getting interested in bluegrass and vice versa, and people collaborating. Like my good friend Sam Reider, who started off as a jazz pianist, or Eddie Barbash, who plays saxophone, and they're now really into bluegrass. And like myself and my friend Dominic Leslie, who plays mandolin, we play in Sam's band. So those kind of collaborations have been cool to see.
That's really cool. Did you always want to play the fiddle, or was there another instrument that you kind of wanted to play?
Ooh, well, I was so young when I started the fiddle. It's my parents just wanted me to play an instrument just to have the experience. They weren't
Yeah.
trying to push anything on me, but they just wanted that to be a part of my upbringing. And I think it was more than anything, it was just like what happened to be available at the music store was a violin.
Yeah.
But I've always there was a phase in like middle school where I just really wanted to play alto saxophone
Oh, really?
because I was getting really into Charlie Parker and Cannonball Adderley.
Yeah.
But that was a short-lived phase. Now probably drums are kind of my dream instrument.
A couple months ago, I was joining the jazz band at my school, and my teacher
cool.
tried to get me to play the trombone
Oh wow!
for a really long time. And,
You weren't having it though.
No. Do you have any like standout experiences in New York City?
Music in general, I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely feel really grateful to have had some moments that have been really inspiring for sure. I mean, one really big opportunity for me was in college. I was studying with this jazz pianist Nilo Perez, who's a really amazing musician, and he ended up asking me to record with him and do some touring with him, like outside of
That's really
school, and that was in some ways terrifying,
Yeah.
but also an incredibly inspiring learning experience. So that's definitely one that stands out. I mean, there are definitely a few for sure, but yeah.
If you were to like describe bluegrass or old time music in like one word, what do you think it would be?
In one word.
Or in one sentence.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put this. To me, the reason why I'm stuck with that music, like when I was kind of growing up, is the community.
Yeah.
And that's nowadays, I'm really into the music and for a lot of reasons, but that when I was like, I guess around your age,
Yeah.
starting to go to camps, meeting people, that was what got me the most inspired, was meeting other people my own age who were into that. And this is a lot more than a sentence, but,
Yeah,
but
okay.
community, I'll put it that. Yeah.
That's okay. Sorry, that was a hard question.
No, it's all good.
Do you have any advice for like people just starting out, like in bluegrass or full time or?
I'd say, gosh, again, like embrace the community aspect of it, and always never lose sight of why we play music in the first place. Because it's so easy to get caught up in whether it's like expectations or worrying about what other people think of your playing, or all these things that we all deal with. But I think it's really important to always come back to like just how enjoyable it is and how it can be a great way to connect with other people.
So I've noticed that like especially in New York City, a lot of the community of bluegrass, they're really like they're kind of on the younger side.
Yeah.
Why do you think younger people are coming towards music that's like 100 years old from
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I do think that's not always the case with bluegrass.
Yeah.
That is a cool thing about, like the New York scene or like in Nashville.
Yeah.
But it does seem like there are more and more young people getting into it. I mean, I think for a variety of reasons, definitely one being just different like bands over the last 10 to 20 years that have kind of came out of bluegrass but have appealed to a younger crowd, like Nickel Creek, Punch Brothers type folks.
Yeah, for sure.
And then even maybe more mainstream stuff too that might lead people to get into bluegrass through some sort of, even just like seeing a banjo in Mumford & Sons, even though it's not bluegrass at all, it might lead someone to get interested in that, and then maybe they'll discover something else through that,
I think this is the last question I have, but what is the draw?
Like what draws me to bluegrass? Yeah. Well, again, the community of it is a really special thing to me, but I love how it incorporates improvisation and groove in kind of a refined format. So it's not, I love jazz and I love more open-ended improvisational styles, but there's something really cool about how bluegrass is like, at least when traditional bluegrass, it's, it's in the form of a song.
Yeah.
And it's short, but it's still interactive. It's still rhythmically very, you know, um, there are a lot of polyrhythms going on, and it's like as if there was a drummer or a rhythm section, but it's all going on amongst the instruments. And I feel like for me, that's growing up playing that has helped me in a lot of other settings, just kind of feeling that responsibility for making it groove and keeping the time, and how everyone's equally responsible. It's not like you have a rhythm section you can lean back on, So I love that kind of rhythmic type community that comes from that.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Some trades.